Welcome back, Focus Learners. I am so incredibly excited to share today's explainer with you because, well, we are venturing into a truly unique literary ecosystem. We're looking at author John Coley's Miniverse. Now, what makes this universe so completely captivating is how its magic actually manifests across completely different, interconnected stories and time periods. Listen, this isn't your standard fantasy world with, wizards waving wands around. Instead, the magic here is deeply historical, it's often chaotic, and it's uniquely biological. So we're going to treat this explainer like a survival field guide. We're unpacking the bizarre, the terrifying, and the surprisingly hilarious rules of magic that govern these wild stories across time.
Okay, let's dive right into this field guide. First, we'll hit the spark of magic, then look at the birth of brownies. After that, royal blood and trows, then the gift of sight, and we'll wrap up with wild American magic.
All right, Section 1, the spark of magic.
To really understand the creatures in this universe across any era, we first have to wrap our heads around the fundamental operating system here. In the Miniverse, magic isn't some ancient spell you read out of a dusty old tome. It's just a biological fact. Literally every living creature is born with a small amount of what's called trace magic. Animals use it completely naturally. Birds use it to instinctively build their nests, and bees use it to create honey. Think about that for a second. Honey in this universe is literally a potent antimicrobial magical substance. It's just absolutely fascinating when you really think about it. And human toddlers? Get this. They are actually the most proficient magic users among us. They instinctively know exactly where to hide a toy so a parent will immediately step on it. It's wild. But as we humans grow up, we are scientifically conditioned to ignore magic. We rationalize it away, mostly to assuage our own guilt or fear, which basically leaves true magic completely invisible to the adult eye.
There's this old translated Scottish proverb that says, "A good beginning makes a good ending." And this everyday, ambient trace magic, that's really just the beginning. But what happens when that trace magic gets violently accelerated by human history?
Which brings us to Section 2, the birth of brownies.
This is the point where human history literally alters nature. It is so wild to see how a specific historical event from centuries ago actively ripples right into modern-day stories. We start with totally normal squirrels, hedgehogs, and mice just existing quietly in the historic Scottish woods. Then they take this massive evolutionary leap into entirely new supernatural beings. And it all hinges on a real historical figure named John Brown. He starts reading the Bible in the native tongue to these forest animals, and their souls actually begin to change. But the absolute catalyst? That's his execution by the king. His martyr's blood spills onto the earth, the animals absorb it, and boom, they mutate. They even take his name, transforming into brownies. Can you believe that? Magic here isn't just random. It's a direct physical reaction to human trauma and spilled blood.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the bizarre dichotomy of the creature itself across different eras. A brownie, in its natural state, is this peaceful blessing to a home, like the one that lived for centuries hidden inside a Viking chest in McAllister Castle. They're super helpful, and they are completely soothed by honey. But if a brownie is removed from its home or gets terrified or agitated, its fight-or-flight response kicks in, and it literally devolves into a boggart. And this is where my mind was totally blown. A boggart acts like a magical defensive mirror. It manifests whatever its victim is most terrified of. So, for a group of modern A-student kids in one of the stories, it turned into a terrifying swarm of spiders. For a kindergartner, a giant snake. It's the exact same creature, guys, just trapped in an endless panic attack.
All right, moving to Section 3, royal blood and trows.
So, if the brownie was born of a humble martyr, our next creature comes from a very, very different side of the historical spectrum. Enter the Trow. And honestly, this is where the lore gets both brilliant and, well, a little grotesque. It perfectly illustrates how magic literally trickles down the food chain in this universe. In ancient times, the divine right of kings wasn't just some political metaphor. Monarchs had actual, potent, healing magic pulsing in their blood. When they died and were buried in those grand earthen mounds, rats obviously invaded the tombs. Those grave-robbing rats consumed the royal blood and mutated into these grotesque, arrogant, invisible beasts called trows.
When you put these two creatures side by side, the contrast is just incredibly fascinating. You've got the brownie, born of a humble martyr, constantly seeking peace and quiet and craving honey. Then you have the trow, born of kings, possessing this intensely arrogant and titled state of mind. But you have to hear their modern weaknesses. Because the trow genuinely believes it is absolute royalty, it demands the absolute best, which, hilariously enough, in a modern American elementary school, translates to aggressively chugging cartons of milk from the cafeteria cooler. And because they're completely obsessed with music fit for a king, you can literally bait a centuries-old tro using the music of Elvis Presley. I mean, the majestic history blending with this modern absurdity is just perfectly done here.
He that peeps through a keyhole may see what vexes him. This old proverb brings us to a really terrifying question. If these invisible, dangerous creatures are just walking around modern schools, chugging milk and causing chaos, who is actually looking through the keyhole to stop them?
That brings us to Section 4, the gift of sight.
We definitely have to talk about the humans at the center of all these overlapping stories. See, most adults and children cannot perceive these creatures at all, not even a little bit. If an average person gets anywhere near a tro or a boggart, they'll experience intense physical sickness, fainting, or just completely terrifying visual hallucinations. But a select few from these interconnected modern-day stories, like the fourth-grade trio Griffin, Garrett, and Sarah, or a kindergartner named Nevaeh, they possess the sight. So, the big question is, why them? Well, it turns out it's because they actually faced the magic alone. One-on-one supernatural exposure acts almost like a biological, magical vaccine. It actually adapts their biology so they can clearly see the true hidden world around them without immediately passing out.
So, how in the world do normal kids survive invisible monsters that are literally pulsing with royal blood? Through sheer ingenuity and some truly brilliant schoolyard tactics. They carry iron horseshoes, quietly provided by the school librarian, of course, to intuitively ward off spirits. They use their after-school woodworking club skills to physically build a wooden rabbit trap. But the absolute stroke of genius? Sarah lines that wooden trap with plexiglass, mirror paint, and modern LED lights. When the ancient tro gets trapped inside, it's forced to see its own reflection, and its royal magic violently rebounds onto itself. And hey, if all else fails, Griffin practically proves that a strategically thrown peanut butter banana sandwich and a discarded banana peel on the hallway floor can physically humiliate a centuries-old magical creature. It is just so clever how they piece all this together.
Finally, we reach Section 5, Wild American Magic.
This is where the world-building geography completely flips the script on us. I want you to imagine our tro traveling all the way from Scotland to America, entirely expecting to be treated like a king. Right? In ancient Scottish castles, the wood and stone are centuries old. They have quite literally been trained over time to respect magic and revere the blood of kings. A massive oak door will literally just swing open if a tro commands it. But wild American magic? Oh, it is chaotic, it's stubborn, and it's completely uncooperative. The tro stands outside the school's iron double doors, throws every single ounce of its ancient magical might at the glass, and absolutely nothing happens. The building is only 40 years old. It doesn't know or care about the blood of ancient kings. So the furious tro is basically forced to crawl through the air conditioning ducts like a common rat. Geography and architectural history act as the ultimate equalizers here. And, it's not just Scottish imports roaming around these stories either. The American ecosystem is absolutely teeming with localized magical phenomena. Down in the second-grade hall, you have haints, these territorial southern spirits that even the arrogant tro wisely decides to avoid altogether. Out in the sprawling deserts, you've got Celtic banshees whose screams literally create pathways to correct global magical imbalances. You even have secretive firebringers hiding ancient magical runes inside everyday modern landscaping projects to passively trap rogue monsters. Every single inch of this universe is alive with overlapping, competing magical rules, weaving hundreds of different stories across the country into one massive, thrilling tapestry.
Which brings us to the end of our field guide today, and it definitely leaves us with a truly fascinating question to ponder. If every living thing, from the bees making honey in your backyard to the toddler hiding your car keys, has a biological trace of magic, and if our modern world is just too new and stubborn to obey ancient rules, what wild magic is interacting with you right now, just out of sight? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep your eyes open, watch your step, and I'll see you next time.